Folks, welcome back to A Study of the Strange. My name is Evan Transu. I was an atheist and just general skeptic of most weird things most of my life. And then I had a pretty profound spiritual experience about 8 years ago now. You can check that out. It's the first video that was ever posted on this channel back in December of 2024. And now I study the strange. Doing that over the years has led me to finding my faith in Christ. So that did not just happen from the spiritual experience itself. It actually happened when I tried to figure out what the heck happened to me during that spiritual experience. So you don't need to be a Christian to watch the show. We welcome all viewers and people. It's not just about that, but if you give me enough time, I might be able to at least show you that there's some validity in what I currently believe. I feel pretty confident that I can do that. Today, we are not necessarily going to be doing that. It depends on your worldview and the lens that you look at everything with. We're going to be talking about this recent clip from Robert Bigelow's new podcast, the Bigelow Podcast. And if you do not know who he is, I'm going to give context here and then context to something else, but you need all of that for this to make sense. So Robert Bigelow is an American billionaire. He's actually the founder of Bigelow Aerospace. He also owns the Budget Inn or Budget Suites chain of hotels in America. And he also had founded National Institute for Discovery Science. And that was from, I believe, 1995 to 2004 that he had that. And so that institute studied consciousness, near-death experiences, just trying to figure out what the heck is going on in this other side of our world. And if you're an atheist watching this right now that does not believe in anything spiritual, that's probably pretty hard for you to make that jump just off me saying that. So I get that. But if you are of any religious faith or just a spiritual person in general, then Robert Bigelow's a fairly interesting guy because he spent so much time literally just trying to figure out what is this other world that so many people, cultures, and religions claim to know about or see. Lastly, most important for at least this show today, he owned a ranch called Skinwalker Ranch from 1996 till 2016, and then it got purchased by its current owner, Brandon Fugel. So if you've heard of Skinwalker Ranch or you've seen the again, I really like these guys, but the kind of dramatized version on the History Channel that is under Brandon Fugel's ownership. It's no diss to them. I know that they have to do certain things to be on TV, and there's a certain structure that the History Channel follows with a lot of those topics. But Skinwalker Ranch is an incredibly interesting place because it's been studied now for almost 31 years nonstop. And even prior to that, there was also a lot of lore around the property. So the whole reason Robert Bigelow even bought it in 1996 is because of the strange things that were happening there for decades to the previous owners. And then prior to that, the Native Americans that are in the area, because it's not, Skinwalker Ranch is not on a Native American reservation, but it's very close to a Native American reservation. They had lore about this. They believed that there was evil spirits. They believed it was cursed by another tribe, and that's why there is so much bad stuff that happens there. So when I say bad and weird and strange, obviously those are loose terms. What do I mean? I mean it's like someone took a science fiction movie and threw it on a ranch. These are like official reports from people in the government at a certain time, with Robert Bigelow at least. I know that the government's not directly involved supposedly right now under Brandon Fugel's ownership, but credible scientists, people that you would listen to for advice, people that you would actually take as, you would take their word seriously. I mean, they've said things like portals opening up and creatures like Bigfoot coming out of it, wolves that stand on 2 feet. UFOs are basically the standard there. There's tons of videos online of UFOs and other weird craft over the property. Orbs, cattle mutilations. I mean, again, it's literally everything that you could picture in a sci-fi movie, but shoved onto one ranch. Now, I'll talk about in different episodes why I think that's very credible to my current belief system, because I think the fact that all these supposedly paranormal and extraterrestrial, I say that in quotes, types of things are all connected somehow, but I digress. Let's get into the stuff with Robert Bigelow and Skinwalker Ranch itself. So I'm going to give you context on this clip I'm about to share. Again, it's from his new podcast. Please go check out the link below. You can see the 2 places that it's posted. There's one news channel that posts it, and then Robert Bigelow himself. And then, of course, you have George Knapp there. If you don't know George Knapp, you must be very new to this space. George Knapp's a freaking legendary journalist and reporter who is willing to cover this stuff decades ago, had the guts to do it. I can only imagine being him now and seeing how far everything's come with disclosure and the fact that you can talk about these topics more openly versus starting this decades ago and the ridicule he must have faced at that time. So him and Robert Bigelow are doing this podcast, at least as of right now. And Robert Bigelow is telling a story at the end of the first episode that involves a security guard that was at the ranch while he owned it. Now, from my understanding, if I follow the story correctly, this is not even a story that happened at the ranch. So, one thing that has been reported for years is what's called the hitchhiker effect at the ranch. So, really creepy stuff, if this wasn't creepy enough, meaning that you go to the ranch and it seems as if some of the stuff follows you home, no matter where in the country or world that you live. And it is not just limited to you experiencing the strange stuff, it is also now going to affect family members and spouses. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, Brandon Fugel, Robert Bigelow, and at least one other guy that was highly involved there had said their spouses were the ones that experienced a lot of the hitchhiker effect. So, from my understanding, just to have context for this clip, definitely a security guard that was on the ranch at the time that all of this was happening. But I think that they were at their house when this particular experience occurred. So, this individual had multiple odd incidents at night, let's say. And then there was one that almost killed him. Let's check out the clip and then we'll get right back to this.
We had another security officer that had a very similar episode happen from a hitchhiker here in Las Vegas in his apartment.
Followed him home.
Yeah, and it happened twice to him. And it was the same kind of thing, only he was able, in the first case, the fellow was being smothered, like he was being smothered to death if it hadn't stopped. In the second case, our fellow had one of the two experiences he was able to see what his attacker looked like. It was a woman that wasn't touching him. She was at the foot of his bed. She was blonde, short-haired, blue eyes, wore clothing that looked like it was in style 100 or 150 years ago. And she had a very mean look on her face. And I'm not making any of this up,
I think I
George.
dated this woman, so go ahead.
I like that. That's funny. So
They were serious. These are serious things that
so
happen.
this was a human spirit. This is not an ET, because remember we were talking before about we live in a three-dimensional world, but there's a sister dimension that completely coexists with us, with physicality, and it's the spirit world, and that's what she was. It wasn't an ET.
Well, you and I are going to have conversations about the spirit world, about consciousness, about the other side, and communicating with them, and then communication with what we'd call ETs.
But wait a minute. You're about to let me hang here.
Oh.
Your audience is wanting to know what happened.
Okay.
He's about to die.
Okay. All right.
He's about to die.
Right. Okay.
He sees her turn her head, and she's turning her head like she's paying attention to something here. And immediately, everything starts to be released from him. He can start to relax, and he falls back to bed. Because I think he was forced to sit up as well as the first guy was. And the first guy was being smothered and by something dark and black. And another episode involved a pillow type of smothering. This third episode involved this being. And she stopped because she was being told to stop.
By something else.
Something else told her to stop, and she stopped, and he lived.
I mean, what do you make of that, man? Like, what do you do with information like that? Especially when you're watching the guy's body language. You can go watch the full podcast. I mean, he does not strike you as someone who's lying about any of this stuff. And again, some of the things that he has shared that are equally as wacky as that story are well documented. They're credible, right? So this is a story, right? And you could say it's true or not true. That's fine. But I am definitely of the belief that this actually happened to his security guard. I think this is real. But there's more aspects to the story that are interesting to me than just the fact that it even happened. Of course, that is phenomenal. And especially if you haven't heard of this stuff before, it's incomprehensible. I don't even know that I can comprehend it fully, especially emotionally speaking, just because I've studied this stuff for a while. It does not mean that I can fully comprehend it. But let's say you're at least with us here to the degree that you believe that this person is telling the truth and had some experience that remotely resembles the one that they share. Okay. What kind of thing is out there? What kind of entity is out there that has the ability to take out another human being? Why does it want to take out another human being? You could have the ability to take out another human being. That doesn't mean that you want to take out another human being, right? When you might have, I keep getting these ads on Instagram. It's because I travel a lot. There's these gorilla tours and trekking things that you can do in Africa. And I looked up, I'm like, I wonder how dangerous this is, because that seems like a pretty powerful animal there, and the humans are getting pretty close. And maybe it's underreported for reasons of keeping tourism up. That's fine. But at least when you look it up, it says there are 0 documented cases of a gorilla on these treks actually killing someone, even though they're fully capable of it. So just because something is capable does not mean it has a desire. So how is the entity capable? Why does it have a desire to cause extreme fear or even death? And then probably the most significant part to me is not actually that. It's the fact that there's another thing that comes in, another entity that has power over this thing and an intention to get it to stop. What do you do with that? So there's already this thing out there that has a desire to kill a human being and an ability to, it seems, but then there's another entity operating in whatever realm of the world that is that says, no, don't do that. Why does that entity care? How does it have the authority to be able to stop something like that? How does it show up at the perfect time? I mean, you could spend forever asking yourself these questions, and I'm afraid I might end up doing that myself because it's driving me nuts. But I will say, even though I know that this is never going to convince a skeptic, from my worldview, the way that fits in is it makes me wonder, well, is that, for lack of better terms, because there's a hierarchy to all this stuff, right? It's not just demonic or something like that. There's the fallen angels and other things. Is that some type of negative energy? Let's just call it that, a negative energy. And that negative energy benefits somehow from causing fear in humans or killing humans. And then is there a good energy, a good entity that is pro-human and intervenes at those times to help protect? I don't know. So it's interesting because even from a Christian perspective, I talk about these things sometimes. There's a lot of Christians that don't understand this stuff or talk about these things whatsoever. They don't even believe. So you can really lose a lot of people by saying that you have a Christian lens but still believe stories like this. To me, I look at this as what the Bible was trying to describe as some type of spiritual or demonic attack. And then it seems as if something good on the spiritual side comes in and stops the attack. Even if you are not of a Christian belief, but you are of a belief that there's something more to this world, or perhaps another world entirely that we somehow might have access to, or that these other entities have access to in addition to our world that we know, I think you could at least admit that throughout history, different religions and cultures almost universally have talked about these bad spirits, entities, demons, whatever, the jinn. And then there are good spirits and good entities, things that want to help humanity. They're pro-human. To me, when I hear a story like the one shared by Robert Bigelow's security guard, I could at least come to the idea that, maybe there was something to all those stories throughout history. Right? Because this to me seems like a bad spirit doing a bad thing, or what one might call a spirit. And then a good spirit comes in and stops that, or at least we perceive it as good because we don't want to die, and we certainly don't want to die in that way. So I'm not saying that you have to become a Christian because of this. This would certainly not be the number one story I'd share with you to try to convince you of that if I had to convince you. But I do want those that are skeptical or new to this stuff to really think about this in a broader perspective, right? Because this is an experience that happened to someone that entered a ranch and then left. And it seems, again, as Robert Bigelow even said himself, not ET in nature, it's almost spiritual. But yet this same property has Bigfoot, bipedal wolves, UFOs, weird blobs, orbs. Like, what does that all mean? Why on earth, as weird as it all is individually, is it somehow connected at this ranch? Is it possible that the ranch and other locations around the world act as an easy entryway from whatever this unseen realm is to this realm? It is way above my pay grade to pretend that I know that, but I will say that seems to be probably what's happening. And that's obviously very oversimplified, but it seems to be that might be what is happening. And why on earth beings with advanced craft, it seems, advanced abilities, advanced powers, need to enter this world just to certain geographic locations? Like, the idea that they'd be limited by that just seems crazy considering all the other stuff that seems to be true about them. But this is not the only place on Earth that exists in that way. This is not the only hotspot for this stuff. And in fact, when you start studying these things, you'll find that separate areas of study, or what are typically separate areas of study, something like a Bigfoot, something like UFOs, something like ghosts, those researchers don't usually interact with each other. But when you actually find out what they consider to be their hotspots, you realize they all have similar hotspots. Not perfectly, right? But 80+% of the time, at least, the UFOs have the same hotspots that the Bigfoot does. Go look up what happens in the Pacific Northwest. That won't take you very long to realize that those hotspots and other paranormal activity overlaps. Or you have places like Mount Shasta in California where people travel all around the world from for spiritual experiences, and there's missing people, all kinds of weird stuff there. And yet Native American tribes that are from the area say that they won't even go above the tree line there because that's where the sky people are. What on earth do you do with that information? I think I'm going to stop for today because I don't want to just confuse you even more, but I had to get this out there. I'm going to start doing more of these clips where I kind of take relevant conversations that are happening and then highlight them here so you can see it in at least a slightly shorter format. And then you can decide for yourself if you want to go watch it, but I cannot recommend enough going and checking out Mr. Bigelow's new podcast with George Knapp. You could hardly have two better people to go listen to on these topics. So that'll do it for today. Please make sure you are subscribed if you like these topics. Also, in the description, I have a link there where you can get on our email list. At the time of recording this in August of 2026, we don't actually send out emails to anyone, but I'm currently collecting them just because I know that some channels like this do really well and then others get kicked off YouTube. I've seen it myself. I don't know why. I don't know what topic got breached that they weren't allowed to share on the bigger platforms, but I'd like to continue to talk about this stuff. So at the very least, if I know where to send new videos to you guys, if something does happen to me ever, that would be great. I will see you on the next video.
For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places.